Next session here, on this particular session in our bodybuilding seminar, we are dealing with leadership management and ethics. Leadership management and ethics. Leadership, according to Dwight D. Eisenhower, is the art of getting someone else to do something that you want done because he wants to do it. I like that. I thought that was a pretty good definition. I want to repeat it. Leadership, he said, is the art of getting someone else to do something that you want done because he wants to do it. Here's my definition. Leadership is the ability to so inspire someone else that they see the vision that you see and desire the same results you desire, to the point that the vision and desire become their own. That's my definition. Leadership is the ability to so inspire someone else that they see the vision that you see and desire the same results you desire, to the point that the vision and desire become their own. And when people take ownership of that vision and desire, you don't have to, your work is easy then. They will run with it because it's become their own. But you've got to, first of all, inspire them in such a way that that happens. Positive leadership is the ability to meet your objectives while assisting others to meet their objectives. Very important. Positive leadership is the ability to meet your objectives while assisting others to meet their objectives. In an organization, if the individual's goals, according to Zig Ziglar, quote, if the individual's goals are more important than the organization's goals, or are in conflict with the organization's goals, the organization will suffer. Similarly, if organizational goals overshadow individual goals or are in conflict with individual goals, the person will suffer. Very interesting. Very interesting, powerful insight from Zig Ziglar. Let's talk then about the secret, what I call the secret of leadership motivation. Number one, every human being is motivated by their own needs, interests, desires, goals, and objectives. First secret, first part of it. And if you don't understand this, you're going to have trouble being effective as a leader. You've got to understand this. Very, very important. Every human being, including you, even though you may not have wanted to admit it, but the fact remains. Every human being is motivated by their own needs. I didn't say your own, I said their own. Their own needs, interests, desires, goals, and objectives. Number two, the secret to corporate productivity, then, ability to recognize that fact and combine your interests with the other person's interests. When you understand how to do that, you're going to have corporate productivity. When someone is doing something they enjoy, and they are learning more and more, and they are growing as they do it, you're going to have corporate productivity. Because their goals are being met and your goals are being met. Because there's certain things you want accomplished in that particular area. So when both are being met, corporate productivity is the result. Third secret. The skill of management, then, is to convince the individual that the attainment of your objectives will result in the fulfillment of their objectives. Now let me put it in the context then of the church. Someone discovers, let's take the worship team or the fine arts department. Someone discovers that a part of their gifting is that of music. So you say to them, listen, since this is your gifting and you want to give it back to God, I have an excellent opportunity for you to develop that gift, give it back to God, for you to become better as you develop it, and for you to assist people in coming into the presence of the Lord. What a deal. What a deal. See, everybody's needs are being met. You have the need for a worship team. You have the need for musicians who will help people come into the presence of the Lord. Is that right? You have that need. Okay. Now, they too have a need. And they're motivated, secret number one, they're motivated what? By their own interests. Now, see, as a leader, you understand that. So you approach them with that understanding. They may never tell you that. But if you know that as a leader, you approach them with that understanding. So you say, this is your gift, area of gifting. I know you want to develop it. I'm going to help you develop it. And as you're developing it, you're going to have the opportunity to assist in bringing people into the presence of God and serving your gift back to God. What a deal. It's a deal you don't pass up. It's a great deal. You know why it's a great deal? Because everybody's needs are being met now. What a different approach, eh? Understanding makes the difference. Without that understanding, your approach may have been, listen, I just want you to come and be part of the worship team. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? There's always what I call the unspoken question. Do you know what that unspoken question is? Who can tell me? There you go. You go to the top of the class. What's in it for me? That's always the unspoken question. We may never admit it, but that question is always there. Even when you talk to someone about giving their life to Christ, it's an unspoken question. Why should I do this? Now, the beauty of it is you can answer that question all day long. First of all, you get to reconnect with God. You get to get an understanding of your purpose. You get to enter a whole new kingdom. I mean, you can talk all day long on that question, but it's still an unspoken question. Even when you talk to someone about salvation. See, now the problem is unspoken question. Nobody wants to admit that that question is there. But it's there. It's there. See? So if you make that first offer, everybody is happy. Because now the person is going to be able to do what they want to do, which is develop their gift. They're going to be able to give it back to the Lord. And now the vision of the ministry of the church is going to be met, because you're going to have people who are developing their gifts. They are sharpening their tools, and they're going to seek to do it with excellence. And by the way, that's what we want in the church. The days of mediocrity are over. We should accept them no more. We want excellence. Excellence. All right? So, those are the 3 secrets of leadership motivation. Let's talk about delegation. I call it getting the job done. The reality is that no organization can achieve its full potential or realize its goals without the cooperation of a team of people. Likewise, no manager can do everything that needs to be done without the help of a team. That's why we need to delegate. Effective leaders have learned the value and the benefit of delegation. Now, delegation will test your leadership ability. Because first of all, it's going to require that you have some insight into the ability of the people you are delegating work to. You're delegating assignments to. You're going to have some insight into their ability. Secondly, you're going to have to monitor their productivity after you delegate it. Thirdly, you may have to direct them. You may have to also correct them. But you also have to give encouragement to them. See, so delegation, sometimes I think some leaders shy away from delegation because it is too much of a test of their leadership. Delegation is going to test you, see what kind of leader you really are. Because delegation is not getting rid of stuff. Let me say that very clearly. Delegation is not dumping stuff. Is that clear? And some leaders make that mistake. To them, delegation is simply dumping it. Well, I don't want to do this. Here, you do that. Here, you do that. That's not delegation. That's dumping. Delegation is, I've studied what I think is your strengths, what I think is your ability. So I'm going to assign this to you. I'm going to give you some guidelines. I'm going to encourage you to be creative. And then there's a period where I'm going to call you in to see how well you're doing. You don't just walk away. You don't just give people stuff and walk away. That's not delegating. It's not delegating. You're trying to get something done. And so I think sometimes some leaders do not delegate because they don't want that kind of test of their ability to be productive. Thirdly, delegation can make or break a leader. Delegation can make or break a leader. Now, why did I say it can break a leader? Simple. You delegate stuff and it doesn't get done. It's a reflection on your leadership. Surprise. You cannot come back to the pastor and say, Pastor, well, these people. No. You have to take responsibility. leaders must always take responsibility. You can't blame the people. Because if the people were not producing, then you should have released them to another area. But if you kept them, they weren't producing and you kept them, it's your responsibility. It reflects on you. You failed in your leadership. Delegation allows you to achieve more at a faster and more efficient pace. That's one of the tremendous benefits of delegation, if it's done right. If it's done right. It allows you to achieve more at a faster and more efficient pace. So, for example, instead of you trying to do everything, you've got 5, 6 people on your team in your department, your division, whatever it is, and you say to them, okay, I need you to do, this is what we want to accomplish, and it would normally take one person 2 months to do it. Listen, here's how we're going to do this. We're going to get this done in 3 weeks' time. I need you to take this area. I need you to take that area. I need you to take this. I need you to take this. Let's get it done. We'll meet back in another week, see where we're at, fine-tune things. Let's get it done. Now you get it done in a faster pace and a more efficient way. One of the hallmarks of an effective leader is the ability to get things done by using the skills of other people. This is what separates the men from the boys, so to speak, in leadership. Okay? The ability to get things done by using the skills of other people. The lack of this ability undermines your effectiveness as a leader. I can't say that loud enough. I want to repeat that. The lack of this ability undermines your effectiveness as a leader. The ability to get things done by using the skills of other people. Now, how are you going to use the skills? You've got to keep in mind what? That people come with their own agenda. But somehow, you've got to help them to understand that they can fulfill their agenda while fulfilling a greater agenda. That becomes part of your skill. That becomes part of your skill as a leader. Delegation, then, is not simply assigning tasks and walking away. Effective delegation requires that you give the staff or employees 3 basic abilities. 3 basic abilities. Whether you're on your job in the workplace or whether you're in the church, same principles apply. 3 basic abilities. 1, the authority to get the job done. The authority. You cannot give people, delegate a responsibility and not give them the authority to get it done. That's frustration. You may have had it happen to you on your job. A task is delegated to you, but you're not given the authority. You still got to go through 5 or 6 persons to finally get a yes. That's frustrating. So if you delegate a responsibility to people in your department in the church, make sure you give them, first of all, the authority to get the job done. Secondly, they need the autonomy to get the job done. In other words, don't delegate it to them, and every hour on the hour you're calling them to find out what they're doing. Or you're going by their department looking over their shoulder. Give them the autonomy to get the job done. And thirdly, give them the resources. Give them the resources. It's unfair for you to give someone a task and not give them the resources. That's unfair. You say to them, listen, this is what we need to do. It's going to cost X amount, but you don't give them any money. Sounds like you're setting them up to fail. No, you've got to also make sure that they have the resources. Okay? You say, okay, we know it's going to require X amount. We need you to get proper quotes. Okay, there's a system. You must get proper quotes. You must submit those quotes, have them approved, and you carry on. But you give them the resources to get the job done. Many organizations make the mistake of leaving ethics to chance. So I want to touch now on ethics. I want to talk about ethics for a few moments. Okay? Let's talk first about what I call the components of a code of ethics. There must always be, in every management, there must be a code of ethics. Number one, compliance with internal policies and procedures. In other words, there are ways that things are done in this organization, and you need to know what those are. You need to know the way things are done. All right? They're the internal policies. You must understand those and the procedures that ought to be followed. Secondly, compliance with external laws and regulations. You know, you must always be in compliance with the law. I mean, you can't come up with something that's against the law of the land. Okay? Thirdly, direction from organizational values. You must understand the values of this organization. What does this organization believe? So whatever assignment you're given must always be in line with what the organization believes. You don't come up with something on your own that's against what the organization believes. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And fourthly, direction from individual values. Direction from individual values. Now, the beauty of the church setting is that we all will know the values that we all have as an organization. And those are the values that should be your values as well. That's why you're part of the organization. So that one should be very easy in a church setting. Okay? That should not be an issue at all in a church setting. Some of the common issues addressed by a code of ethics. And you can use this in your business setting. And it's also applicable in your church setting. Number one, equal opportunity. There is no place better than the church for equal opportunity. The church don't need an equal opportunity law. God gave it to us a long time ago. He made everybody in his image and likeness. Okay? So equal opportunity is a part of what we live by in the church. There isn't anyone in the church better than anybody. God made male and female of equal value. Okay? I don't care what the culture say. I'm not bound by the culture. I'm bound by the Bible. God made everyone of equal value. So in the church, we really don't have the equal opportunity problem. That's not a problem for us. Okay? We don't need a law from the outside. We have it inside. Then, of course, there's sexual harassment. It never should take place in any organization, especially the church. Then there's diversity. There's diversity. One of the beauty of the church is we all have different gifts, eh? So there's definitely always diversity among us when we function. Privacy and confidentiality, very important. Very important. Somebody shares something with you as a leader that is private and confidential, it needs to remain that way. You don't call somebody else up and say, listen, sister, I want you to pray with me about this. That's an old trick. That's nothing new. That's an old trick. You are being unconfidential. under the guise of prayer. You know, we play those games in the church, you know, under the guise of prayer. Yeah, man, listen, man, listen, man, we got to pray about this. So and so and so and so and so. You're being unconfidential if the person told you that in confidence. You can't play those games. Conflicts of interest. Let's say you're purchasing equipment for the church, right? And it's your company you're purchasing it from. You shouldn't purchase it. You need to disclose that I have a company that sells these products. And you go to the person above you and you say, I have a company that also sells these products. I realize we need these products. And so I'm going to put in a bid, but you need to secure some other bids, but I will put in a bid. And let the person above you make the decision. You don't make the decision for your own company. Hello? That's unethical. We're talking about ethics. That kind of business is unethical. A lot of people are getting in trouble in the business world now because they don't have any ethics in their dealings. They're wheeling and dealing, paying themselves and doing all kind of nonsense. Forming, companies that they own and selling to themselves and bypassing all of the rules. I mean, ethics is very serious. But it should not be an issue in the church. But sometimes it is. Because not everyone in the church is totally converted. They are saved, but they're not converted. Converted has to do with a change of thinking. Not everyone is converted as they should be. So it becomes even an issue in the church. But it should not be. Amen? Amen? Okay, better say amen loud or I get worried. Gifts and gratuities. Employee health and safety. Those relate somewhat to the church, but more to the corporate setting. All right? Every organization and every leader is faced with ethical choices every day. The ability to make the right choices is what distinguishes the leader. Very important. This ethics business is very, very important in the church. Of recent times, we've heard so much negative stuff that has gone on in the church and has brought so much disgrace to the church. You know why? There's a lack of ethics. There's a lack of ethics. But every organization and every leader is faced with ethical choices every single day. The ability to make the right choices is what distinguishes the leader. Now I want to close with 6 keys to making good ethical choices. Okay? Because this is really what distinguishes you as a leader. Your ability to be ethical. There are certain things that are right, there are certain things that are wrong, and your desire ought to always be to do that which is right. Number 1, evaluate circumstances through the appropriate filters. Here's some of the filters: culture, laws, policies, circumstances, relationships, politics, perception, emotions, values, bias, and religion. Excuse me. Evaluate the choices through the appropriate filters. For example, culturally something may be acceptable, but biblically is it acceptable? See? Everybody else may be doing it, and it seemed okay. But is it okay from a biblical perspective? You've got to filter the thing correctly. Because not everything that is culturally acceptable is biblically right. Okay? You've got to also filter it. For example, circumstantially it may be okay for some people, but is it biblically correct? You know, someone might say, well, if I was in that circumstance, this is what I would do. Yeah, maybe you would, but is it right? Is it right? It may sound good, but is it right? Not everything that sounds good is right. And certainly not everything that is convenient is right. By no means. Most of the time it's wrong if it's just convenient. Number 2, treat people and issues fairly within the established boundaries. Treat people and issues fairly within the established boundaries. Fair doesn't always mean equal. Now let me explain that statement for you. Let's say you are in charge of a particular area and you have some discretion. Okay? In other words, you've got some leeway in your judgment in certain policies on how you implement them. Now, you did not give that leeway to yourself. It was delegated to you, all right, by the leadership that, okay, in this particular case, you have a little bit of discretion on how you handle this situation, all right? So, you may do one thing for someone in a particular case. There may be someone else, because of their circumstances, you treat them a little differently because you have that discretion. Now, only when you have the discretion. If it's a straight law, then you've got to go by the law. If there's no discretion, there's no discretion. But I'm talking now about where there is some discretion. Okay? So that's why I'm saying, that's why I said fair doesn't always mean equal, because you may use the discretion a little differently in a particular case based on the situation the person has or they're in. Okay? So that's why I make the statement there, fair doesn't always mean equal. It is only in the case where you have discretion. If you have no discretion, then it doesn't arise. Okay? Then it's always equal. All right, 3, hesitate before making critical decisions. Don't make hasty, critical decisions. Because usually you regret it later. You said, oh, I should have considered this, I should have considered that. And you end up sometime not making good ethical choices. Be very careful when people put pressure on you to hurry up and make a decision without even allowing you to consider it and to pray about it and to think about it. Okay? Be very careful about those kinds of things. Many times they force you into making unethical decisions that you regret. 4, inform those affected of the standard and the decision that has been made or set. Okay? Let's say you have to, in fact, enforce some kind of discipline in your department. Well, a part of being an ethical leader is that you inform the person, okay, listen, here's what has happened. Here's where you violated the policies of this ministry that has been set by leadership. You violated it, and here's what's going to have to happen. Okay, that's being ethical. Because what it's doing is, you are saying to them, I am not coming up with something out of my head, we would say. Or I'm just not making up something. This is not something that I'm creating. This is a standard that has been set. and you have violated that set standard. So the treatment you are receiving relates to your violation of the standard. It's nothing personal. It's nothing personal between us. It's just that you have violated the standards. And here's what has to happen in this case. Okay? 5, create an environment of consistency for yourself and your working group. Create an environment of consistency for yourself and your working group. In other words, you have to be consistent in what you do and in what you say in every situation. You have to be consistent. You can't do one thing in this case and then in another case you shift. That's unethical. That's unethical. And you will lose respect very quickly as a leader if that is your behavior. You will lose respect. And number 6, seek sound counsel when there's any doubt. Okay? Seek sound counsel when there's any doubt. That's important. You have a question about whether something is ethical or not, go and seek counsel. That's one of the smartest things you can do. Because it may, especially, certain situations, they seem okay, but you're still not quite settled about it. And maybe you can't figure out why you're not quite settled. But when you go and get counsel, all of a sudden you realize, that's why I wasn't settled about it. Okay, all right, okay. Or maybe you get counsel and you realize it was just you. It is okay. But if you're not unsure, go and get some sound counsel. Amen? Now, I want to give you an example of an unethical piece of behavior. I could give you a couple, but let me give you this one. I want you to turn with me, if you have your Bibles, to 2 Kings chapter 5. The first part of chapter 5, 2 Kings, chapter 5. The first part of chapter 5 has to do with the healing of Naaman. Okay, you remember Naaman, right? The chap with the leprosy, who, thank goodness, had a maid there who knew about the man of God and was able to give him some advice and help him, eh? All right, so he was healed. But let's go to verse 20. But Gehazi, I don't know if that's a good name to name your child. There's certain names you shouldn't name your children, okay? But Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, "Look, my master has spared Naaman the Syrian, while not receiving from his hands what he brought." Now Naaman had sent some gifts to Elijah, and Elijah refused to accept the gifts. Okay? All right. For whatever reason, but his position was he didn't want to accept the gifts. Okay. But as the Lord lives, I will run after him and take something from him. So Gehazi pursued Naaman. When Naaman saw him running after him, he got down from the chariot to meet him and said, "Is all well?" And he said, "All is well. My master sent me saying," unethical, here we go. "My master has sent me," excuse me, saying, Indeed, just now 2 young men of the sons of the prophets have come to me from the mountains of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 changes of raiment. So Naaman said, please take 2 talents. And he urged him and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of garments, and handed them to 2 of his servants, and they carried them on ahead of him. When he came to the citadel, he took them from their hand and stored them away in the house. Then he let the men go, and they departed. Now he went in and stood before his master. Elisha said to him, where did you go, Gehazi? And he said, your servant didn't go anywhere. My Lord, he's adding to this thing. I think he would have been better off if he had gone to Naaman and said, listen, my master didn't want nothing, but my brother, I need something. I think he'd have been a little ahead. Ah, boy. Then he said to him, did not my heart go with you when the man turned back from his chariot to meet you? Is it time to receive money and to receive clothing, olive groves and vineyards, sheep and oxen, male and female servants? Therefore, unethical behavior has its consequences. Therefore, the leprosy of Naaman shall cling to you and your descendants forever. Ay, 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 ay. That's a serious thing. Now, what would be interesting is to trace his family tree to today. You would probably find that that family has leprosy or something of its nature still to the day. Because the prophet said forever. Serious business, eh? Serious business. And he went out from his presence, leprous, as white as snow. That's what you call unethical behavior. His master said no. He should have left it just like that. He should have left it like that. But he went and he told a lie. Go with me to one more example, then I'm done. Acts chapter 5. But a certain man named Ananias, with Sapphira his wife, sold a possession. And he kept back part of the proceeds, his wife also being aware of it, and brought a certain part and laid it to the apostles' feet. But Peter said, Ananias, why has Satan filled your heart to lie to the Holy Spirit and keep back part of the price of the land for yourself? While it remained, was it not your own? And after it was sold, was it not in your own control? Why have you conceived this thing in your heart? You've not lied to men, but to God. Now, it would appear that they sold the land, sold it at a certain amount, but they brought a certain amount to the apostles and said, this is all we sold it for. No, why not say to the apostles, we sold it for this. We've put up some in our savings account, and we've brought some for the church. It was there, it was theirs. But the unethical part was saying that this is all we sold it for. Unethical behavior has its boy, and this worse than the leprosy, I believe, because at least the fellow was alive with the leprosy. You've not lied to men, but to God. Then Ananias, hearing these words, fell down and breathed his last. So great fear came upon all those who had heard these things. And the young men arose and wrapped him up, carried him out, buried him. Now it was about 3 hours later when his wife came in, not knowing what had happened. I mean, she knew, I would think, that he was coming to see the apostles. I would think she would have said, oh, by the way, we're Ananias. At least she could have had a chance. And Peter answered her, tell me. You see, Peter's giving her a chance. She had a chance to change her story. Tell me, whether you sold the land for so much? She said, yes, for so much. Then Peter said to her, how is it that you have agreed together to test the Spirit of the Lord? Look, the feet of those who buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out. Then immediately she fell down at his feet and breathed her last, and the young men came in and found her dead, and carrying her out, buried her by her husband. So great fear came upon all the church and upon all those who heard these things. So this unethical behavior gave some business to the undertakers. And I close with that. All right?